either in for a very long game or a very short game, because the Niv to Light deck is a toolbox deck which can eventually just pop off with its namesake cards of Bring to Light for Niv Mizzet, Reborn, wind up getting a lot of draw cards put into your hand, one for each guild pair, the color pairing that you could wind up finding, and just kind of buries a deck with card advantage and just like the ultimate kind of mid-range shell. And then there's Esper Greasefang, which is the Esper version of just putting a Parhelion into play and attacking with a bunch of angels.
So both players are being ready to play here. So how? So I'm gonna assume that Charles is probably gonna be slightly favored in this matchup on the Delight.
So when it comes to the Niv to Light matchup versus Abzan Greasefang, the Niv to Light deck is a little bit slower, but it does have a bunch of different dual colored cards that can kind of deal with a bunch of different situations. So if it has the correct cards at the correct time, it can deal with Greasefang on curve. However, the Abzan Greasefang version can just wind up playing its combo out on turn 3 and doing so very consistently. The Esper version, I know Rune has, instead of like Grizzly Salvage, you have Faithless Mending, and you wind up having Tainted Indulgence and everything. So it's a little bit different and a little slower.
So it looks like they're all ready to shuffle up here. Charles is letting us know that they're ready to play. Now, we are going to have the Niv to Light deck triple sleeved.
Yeah, this is the Charles special.
I'm going to say it's triple sleeved. It's nothing. It ain't nothing until you see a quad sleeve modern deck.
Jeez, I mean, so Charles had this one thing. I don't know if you were here when he did this. He quad sleeved his Yorion deck and then timed people shuffling it.
Really?
It took like 18 to 20 seconds to do like a double shuffle with it and then pass it back to him. It was ridiculous.
So Charles is going to go first here. He made the snap set. Looks like an Omnath. Well, that's all I saw. One here is going to mold down to 6.
Oh yeah, this is kind of what you expect from the Greasefang deck. You're looking to combo as fast as possible in this matchup if you know what you're playing against, because if the Niv to Light deck is able to kind of do the thing it wants to do, there's no way you can really come back from it with the Greasefang deck. You need to be able to get those angels on the battlefield and chip away at life total, if not killing them in 2 turns, having the multiple flying threats to break through these dragons.
Now, as this is not Comparel, so we're not going to yell at Rune for the AirPods in the ear. So hopefully no one's sitting behind Charles giving the information. So we're going to have a Consider come out for the Dark Side Shores from Rune here. Tap Sticker friendly from Charles. And pass go. We're going to have a Secret Coast come out and looks like a Toxic Deluge coming out from Rune. So we're going to draw 2 and I think discard 2 or 3 or 1.
Just discarding 1, yeah.
Discard 1 for the Sky Sovereign.
Which is pretty solid because now this represents Greasefang getting back Sky Sovereign console flagship, so that's at least 6 damage that can wind up coming out. And Charles, very crucially, not having a Sylvan Caryatid on this turn means that he's not going to have the kind of super fast Bring to Light turn that you expect from the Niv list.
Yeah, oh, it looks like, as you can see, I see this 2 Cornucopias in Charles's hand. So, Cornucopia is this very interesting card that, if I can spell it correctly...
Yeah, the Astral Cornucopia, which is kind of complements the Sylvan Caryatid. It's a 3-mana mono rock, but in this Niv shell, you can gain up to 5 life per turn with it, which is very difficult for a Greasefang deck, especially one that did not turn 3 Greasefang to beat.
So, from my knowledge of Cornucopia, this card's the new hot card as of now, I think. Because I know at SGCon, I could not find a single one. It kept on getting bought out. Every time I got restocked, immediately sold. So it was a very hot ticket item for the buy list there. So 3 steps ahead does come out. Another card that is pretty new that has actually been gaining value slowly over time since its release.
Yeah, and this is interesting because Rune actually activated the ability to draw 2 and discard a card. So basically a 3-mana Tainted Indulgence. Rather than counterspelling the Astral Cornucopia.
So Shieldred is going to come out here, so this clock is actually, I think, I'm not describing it, but Rune is sitting nice and pretty here until a late line mine will come out, but I don't think that it's going to be a case. So, actually, Bring Light's going to come out from Charles here.
Yeah.
So what could Charles potentially get? in the deck?
Well, right now you're
Or
most
outside the
likely going to see Niv Mizzet Reborn. Niv Mizzet Reborn has a very cool thing where you don't actually draw cards off of it; you just put them into your hand. So that will be something that can kind of get around Sheoldred while also finding a potential answer for Sheoldred from Charles's deck. Charles does wind up having looks like one of every color mana, but instead going just for Unmoored Ego. So
Wow. So on more ego, basically since Rune did miss the turn 3, turn 4 Greasefang play, is just gonna name Greasefang outright.
right,
So how does that affect like Rune's entire game plan now?
Probably not too badly, considering there's still a Sheolder on the battlefield. I mean, we can see Stubborn Denial consider Lively Dirge in the hand of Rune. The Lively Dirges are not going to be very effective without anything to kind of get back from them, and we know that with the Greasefang and the Sheoldred, I'm not sure what other creatures Rune has before, maybe some kind of Rafine's Informants or Evangelist Synthesis, which aren't really big threats you're going to want to be reanimating. So from Charles' side here, you don't have to worry about the graveyard from Rune anymore. You're just worried about finding a removal spell for the Sheoldred, which Charles might actually just have in hand.
Rune's gonna back up now to 18 all here. So we've gotten rid of the main problem, potentially deck, but now we have to deal with the shoulder on the board. So going to swing out for 4 damage, bring Charles down to 14.
And I believe Charles has the answer to Sheoldred in his hand. I think that's a deadly cover-up I saw on the top. If Charles is able to cast that, because I do believe there's at least one of each color of mana, but you need the double black coming out from that. That would just wipe the board with Sheoldred, and then Charles has enough to collect evidence in his graveyard to get rid of all the Sheoldreds as well.
Well, luckily, that cornucopia does tap for black as well, so...
I'm thinking you don't have.
Oh, actually, yeah, it doesn't have double black here.
The sense of.
So I can't quite tell what the first... I think that you said was Sacred Foundry and Stomping Grounds.
Yeah, Sacred Foundry and Stomping Grounds. And Omnath... Ooh, Omnath is gonna come out here, get the trigger. So Omnath, Locus of Creation, usually typically seen in Modern here, but also like in Niv to Light as well.
Oh yeah, this is what the deck used to be named after. So it used to be Omnath to Light because you would bring to light for Omnath, and then you would play things like this Fabled Passage to take advantage of that landfall triggered, which is 3 tiers. So Charles here is going to be gaining 4 life, then he's going to be adding 1 of every color except for black to his mana pool, and you're not going to be able to really trigger the 3rd version. You're not going to really be able to deal 4 damage to your opponents and their planeswalkers that frequently. But what we do have here is representing 4 mana from the 5 mana with that untapped swamp from the side of Charles, which could be Niv Mizzet Reborn to just restock his hand.
Yeah, and this Shielder now not looking too good anymore with these draws, because every time Charles will play lands only gain 4, so
Yep.
not really gonna do much except for just be a death touch vanilla card at this point.
Yeah, more importantly, Charles, so when Omnath enters, you draw a card, and then Charles is basically undoing all that Sheoldred damage with the immediate landfall trigger. It does look like Charles is going to wind up finding Island off of this.
So we're gonna have the second trigger here. So we're gonna have 1 red, 1 green, 1 white, and 1 blue floating here for Charles. So potentially has a black and a blue up. So something in maybe double blue, since he did go for the island. I'm not too sure what's in the deck for that.
Yeah, I'm not super sure what Double Island could represent right now. I do know that having Island Plains represents like Dovin's Veto, but from the Niv to Light list specifically, you don't really have double blue spells, but you do have things like Lila, Undefeated Slick Shot, which then basically gives all of your spells plot so that you can do it again the next turn. So maybe Charles representing something like having a Lila turn where you want to have double blue to cast multiple blue spells.
So Charles would like to leave a white up and play another cornucopia.
This is also pretty solid. Also, most importantly, from this turn that Charles did, that cornucopia gained 4 life from casting Omnath as the first spell because it's 4 colors. So already just undoing all this Sheoldred damage, and this is why we can see Charles going for the Unmoored Ego on Greasefang right away, because this Sheoldred is just basically a non-factor now.
So we're gonna use the remaining floating white and the forest, and the island and the swamp to buy Yorion. So we're gonna have a forgot that card's called.
The Faithful Mending coming
yeah.
out from Rune. So Rune's going to draw 2, gain 4 life, discard 2 cards. But at the same time, Charles now bought Yorion, so next turn he can play Yorion, blink Omnath, and just do everything we saw all over again.
So the discard a Dark Slick Shores. I'm not sure what the other card is.
The
but
Lively Dirge. With the Greasefangs
Dirge.
out of the deck, that probably represents that Rune doesn't have any other heavy hitters besides Greasefang, Shieldred. So that means that this Lively Dirge is kind of a dead card right now.
So I'm going to go with the 28 here. We'll assume just swing with the Shieldred. Make sure that Charles can't, get some free damage in since Charles can't even block anyway. Very rough position here because I think it's just a stubby D and not another Dirge in hand.
I think that's what it is.
From what we see from the revealed cards. So Charles will go down to 14 here, but I don't think that really matters that much. So as we consider, so we're gonna scrap. We're going to Surveil 1. We're gonna draw it. Go up to 30. And tap 2 more mana for a Toxic Deluge. So I think we're just gonna try to gain as much life as we can before Charles does go off.
Yep, so 34 now, so Tainted Indulgence in addition to this, and I'm not entirely sure what Rune is digging for. Could be like a Bitter Triumph or something to answer this Omnath, but Rune not too happy with what they wind up drawing off of all of those draws.
So it looks like both players missed the draw trigger for Shieldred on Charles, which actually can matter.
Technically on the stack.
On the yeah, we'll play it later.
Until right now, yeah.
We're gonna go to 16 here for Charles. Oh, actually no. So
Yeah, playing the 16 going down there was from
yeah. So I think they both acknowledged it.
yeah, but just didn't change the life total until the life gain came in from the Omnath.
Yeah.
Just shortcutting some things.
Yeah. I don't know. Comparable. Both players didn't especially say it, but there's a deadly cover up. When they collect stubby D.
Yep, and that's just hard counterspell because the Shieldred
Yep.
having 4 power.
Now, so we all know Charles knew that was public knowledge since Rune is playing revealed. Now, what's Charles' real play here is the Leyline Binding. That is the one that Charles did want to resolve at the beginning of this.
Yep, so that means that baiting out the Deadly Cover-Up, playing the Leyline Binding, just swinging in with the Omnath. So now, this is a scene very reminiscent for Modern players who play against 4-color decks in Modern. It's the Omnath that's on the battlefield. We did a bunch of things to prevent you from playing the game, and now it's going to take us another, let's see here, we attack every single turn. It's going to be at least 8 turns until you wind up killing someone.
Yeah, that's painfully. I know that pain very well as a Murphrug player, where I can go as fast as I can until if Omnath resolves, game is over.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, you're talking to somebody who winds up playing like Scam and Pox decks and stuff. So if Omnath's on the battlefield, I've already lost the game. But this is Lively Dirge for Micromancer. So Micromancer is an interesting one from these Esper lists because you basically have to search for an instant or sorcery card, reveal it, and put it into your hand, but it has to be very, very small. But this works very well with the Spree cards from Outlaws at Thunder Junction because most of them, at least the rare ones, are 1 mana. So you can find them and then wind up playing, like a 4 or 5 mana spell because of all of the Spree costs that it has.
Is that the new tutor I saw?
Yeah, that's
Rune is looking at it.
Yeah, the tutor is going to be the one that the Greasefang decks were kind of playing around with. The kind of package of Micromancer with the tutor, but it looks like Rune searching through their deck, realizing that they don't really have anything else besides Shieldreds to kind of combat this, and that's just not going to be enough. So deciding maybe to go to game number 2 and try to start over on the play.
So Charles will take game number 1 here. Bring back to Unmore Ego was pretty good. Especially since Rune did miss the turn 3, turn 4. It just really opened up the floodgates.
Yeah, and that spell that we did wind up seeing from Rune was Insatiable Avarice, which would be able to search. It's basically Imperial Seal. You get to search your library for a card, shuffle it, and then put it on top. And then you can also use the mode to draw 3 and lose 3 life, or make somebody draw 3 and lose 3 life. So it's kind of like a super sign in blood. But Rune, like I said, they're probably just going to be shuffling up, going to game number 2, trying to get on the play in this matchup, and just doing the Greasefang thing of putting Parhelion or Sky Sovereign into the battlefield as early as turn 3.
So, if you're Rune here, what are you bringing to the Niflheim? Because I'm not too familiar with the Greasefang playing in general, especially the sideboard. So, what are the answers you do have against this Niflheim?
So, looking at what Rune did in game number 1 when they were searching through their library with the Micromancer, if this is a package that's very similar to other Esper Greasefang lists that I've seen, Micromancer signifies that it's more of a control shell. So, you're going to have a lot of these draw discard spells. You're going to have like all these kind of ways to try to turbo out a Greasefang, but your sideboard is going to shift you more into a bit of a control style deck. We saw the Stubborn Denials, which work great with basically every creature in the deck because it kind of just makes it hard counterspell for a non-creature spell, but we're most likely going to be seeing things like Mystical Dispute's a weird one because Mystical Dispute works against Bring to Light, it works against Niv, it works against Omnath, but it doesn't hit absolutely everything from Charles's deck. But, you know, having that 1 mana kind of counter magic available from Rune is going to be very key to taking control of the pace of the game. I wouldn't be surprised to also see Dovin's Veto, even though the Niv to Light list plays big, powerful creatures. There's only 3 Nivs in the deck. 2 of them are Reborn and 1 of them is Supreme. And then the rest of the creatures are kind of 1-ofs, except for Omnath, which is either 3 or a 4-of. You have 17 creatures total in an 80-card deck. You're mostly going to be slinging spells.
So, Charles still shuffling up. As you can see on camera, beefy triple sleeve here. Double standing, using the table to shuffle. Trying the percent. So, looks like we can get into game number 2 now. So, let's talk about this insatiable avarice?
Yeah,
How do you say it?
Insatiable Avarice is part Imperial Seal, part Super Sign in Blood. You know, Grim Tutor is like another way you could think of it because it costs the same, but it's only 1 black and it puts the card on top of your library instead. So it sets you up for a draw the next turn, or it sets you up to mill something over with like a Consider following it up.
So we're gonna have a stun. We're gonna come in tap for Charles here. Where actually yeah. So Rune discard. Rune bends the Faithful Mending.
Yep.
From the Consider. Now, Pascal to Charles. Charles plays swap now. We're going to potentially see a... Ooh.
Sylvan Carry added. Yeah,
Caryatid.
this is kind of like the signal of a potential explosive start from Charles's Niv to Light list. The Sylvan Carry added means that you jump up the curve, so next turn we could wind up seeing a 4-mana spell like an Omnath. The black mana there kind of prevents Omnath from actually happening on turn number 4, but we do wind up seeing Astral Cornucopia in the hand of Charles, which will then skip you to 5 mana on your turn 4, be able to kind of cast whatever you want.
So Rune's going to discard from the Faithful Mending another Mending and a Sky Sovereign here. So a potential turn 3 Greasefang can come out, but I don't think Rune has it. So it's a Pasco. Looks like a double Toxic Deluge is in the Rune's hand. So we're gonna just get Hilltop Retreat into a Cornucopia.
Yep.
Getting all these mana rocks out.
Now we'll see if Rune's going to either flashback or no, it does wind up being the Tainted Indulgence instead. So just drawing 2, discarding 1, really digging for that Greasefang. Finds another Tainted Indulgence, which is not quite Greasefang, but I think there was a Consider as well. So Consider here would be just another way to dig, but maybe I was misread that card and it was not a Consider after all, because Rune probably would have just snapped it off there.
Yeah. Also another bit of triumph as well. So looks like Rune did draw into the Shieldred, taking 2 down to 19 here. I think if you're gonna jam Shieldred, is the best time right now.
Yeah, you kind of want to do this right here and now. Try to put some damage on Charles's life total. If Charles follows up with like a Niv or a Bring to Light, it's whatever. This just basically signals that you don't have the counter magic in your hand anyway. So maybe Rune not bringing in those Mystical Disputes or just not finding them here. But Charles,
ooh, is that a Lightning Helix?
believe that's a Lightning Helix. So that's going to wind up being gaining 2 life, going to be dealing some damage over to Rune as well.
Sorry for the light total discrepancies. Forgot that Cornucopia, you do gain life from it as well. So you can go up to 25 and then back down to 23 from the Shieldred draw.
Yep.
And that's 5 mana. That is...
See.
So 4 here is most likely going to be the Omnath while Rune is tapped out. I mean, it's basically guaranteed. So we have Omnath coming out here. ETB trigger, going to draw a card. So go down to 21. Well, actually gains life in the Cornucopia, so to 25 actually.
Yep. And then there's that landfall trigger. So now we have
29.
one of every color mana because of that untapped swamp. But Charles, actually, no follow-up play, just the Omnath. That's it's kind of a breath of fresh air for Rune, because if you find Greasefang, you can ETB kill the Omnath here with the Sky Sovereign. It looks like it is just going to be hard casting Lively Dirge and spreeing. So that's going to be finding something, putting it into Rune's graveyard, and then the other part of the spree cost is going to be reanimating a number of creatures up to 4 mana. So that's going to be putting Greasefang in the bin, reanimating Greasefang, and then that's going to be getting back that Sky Sovereign. It'll enter the battlefield, bop that Omnath for 3, then you're going to crew it, attack, bop Omnath for 3 again, get it off the battlefield, and in addition to that, probably send 10 damage to Charles's face.
So one thing to note as well is Rune did shock and did not. Well, okay, never mind. So it looks like they did solve the life, because earlier on a life tower thing, Rune did go down to 14.
But then
Shock.
gain 2 life
Yeah,
from
gain
the
2.
Shieldred trigger.
So, 16. So how Charles gonna like to block the Shieldred?
Oh no, that was the
no, that's the damage.
the Sky
from
Sovereign
Sky
triggers,
Sovereigns.
yeah. But it looks like Fatal Push in Charles's hand. So Fatal
Shield?
Push, ooh, killing Shieldred here. It's pretty big.
So Shieldred's actually really good hit here. So we're gonna go down to 23 health for Charles. Now, how does? So, let me take a look at Greasefang again. I gotta read this card. It explains the. At the beginning of combat on your turn, return target of your card from your graveyard to the battlefield against haste. Okay.
Yeah, and so what Rune has now is 2 Faithful Mendings in the graveyard, so that can represent drawing to and discarding that Sky Sovereign, so you can at least have 6 repeatable damage. If you find a Parhelion, you put that in the bin, and then there's 15 damage. But ooh, Unmoored Ego here. We'll see if Charles names Parhelion or the Sky Sovereign that he knows is in hand.
So we're gonna name. So we are gonna name Greasefang when there's already one out. So that means Charles does have an answer. Probably does have an answer to the one on board as of right now.
You would hope so, otherwise you wouldn't be naming it.
But also as well, Charles would like not to look through the deck.
Yeah, Charles is kind of like, that's fine. I don't know. I don't really care what you're going to be sideboarding. Reading Tating Indulgence more so than looking at the deck. But this signifies that there's some sort of removal spell or a Leyline Binding or something coming out from Charles here, because if there isn't, then that represents 6 additional damage from the Sky Sovereign that he knows is in hand. It looks like Sunfall, but not going to be able to cast that right now.
So I think we're just going to play Pillage the Bog here, if I assume. Can you play Pillage the Bog with that mana base?
I mean, you have the Sylvan Carry added as well, and you have a Stomping Ground, so that represents all the colors of mana that you need. And then, yeah, playing the additional land here, so that's going to be top 10.
Wow, so looking at 10 cards is pretty strong, actually.
Yeah, it's basically like build your own Niv Mizzet. Although you're not going to be able to put any number of them in your hand, you're just going to be able to put 1 into your hand instead. But still, tutoring the top 10 cards of your library. Sure, you're a Yorion deck, so it's actually a smaller percentage than a normal 60-card list, but basically Charles is just going to say, hey, I have a Sunfall in hand. I can cast that if I absolutely need to get rid of this Greasefang, but if I find a Leyline Binding, I can just cast that with my Sylvan Carry added right now.
Charles, we unfortunately can't see what he's looking at because he's leaning pretty far back, but
Just being a little sneaky.
see you at the end of it. But so I think best thing you probably do want here is maybe a binding, some way to remove this Greasefang, because it seems like Charles doesn't have it.
Yeah, if you remove this Greasefang, you've already Unmoored Ego all the rest from Rune's deck, and we saw in the previous game that Rune basically just has Shieldred and Greasefang and then a Micromancer to kind of do things. Micromancer, I forget how much power Micromancer actually has. I believe it's 3 coming out from Micromancer. Because if that's the case, then Micromancer would be able to crew the Sky Sovereign, which then would be a legitimate win condition coming out, and it is 3 power from the Micromancer. So Sky Sovereign does have crew cost of 3, so if you do have Micromancer and Shieldred only left, like that's still a viable way to wind up winning this game. But we'll see if Rune's going to be able to keep this Greasefang around for a little while longer. Ooh, there's Parhelion.
More hymns to come out. Crewing it with the Greasefang.
So this represents 15 damage, which will put Charles down to 10, but we know that Charles has Sunfall in hand, which will then create with the Caryatid on the battlefield will create a 4/4 incubate token as well, and more importantly, it'll exile the Greasefang.
Charles in their left position here. I think Rune also still keeping up the disdain for Shock mana as well,
Which is very key here.
So Charles in the right position here. Can you afford to bait anything out? Well, unless you have a push here. Push would be amazing versus this Greasefang if you can have Revolt come off.
And Charles right now is probably looking at baiting something out, although Cornucopia can't actually be countered by Disdainful Stroke, so that's not going to be the case. But with that face-up Disdainful Stroke, Charles knows that he can't just hard cast the Sunfall into it. And at 12 HP, Charles is actually just dead on board if Rune can just flash back this Faithful Mending.
So we're going to tap 5 here. Bring to Light.
This should be a snap counter spell.
Yeah, snap, bring... Mind control of Rune not to cast it. There's the cast. So, actually, Charles will go up to 16 from the Cornucopia.
Yeah, so this is basically Charles saying, hey, I'm going to gain a couple of life off of this Bring to Light, so this will put me out of dying range, but now that the Disdainful Stroke is gone, that Sunfall is back online unless Rune is able to exactly draw another counter spell.
So, we're going to Tainted Indulgence.
Yep, this will just put the Parhelion back in the graveyard.
Or the Sky Sovereign, either or, but you definitely want to put the Parhelion.
This is actually important. We need to see if there are 5 or more different mana costs in the graveyard, because Tainted Indulgence doesn't make you discard then.
Yeah.
But that's enough.
Okay, that's it. So game number 2 does go to Rune on Greasefang.
Yeah, and Charles actually not able to survive that attack because the Parhelion Angels stick around afterward. So that was, instead of being for 15, that was for 23, and Charles unfortunately was not going to be the one to survive it through that one. So that's going to be evening things up 1 game apiece. So Rune kind of doing what they wanted to do. That game, they didn't have the turn 3 Greasefang, but they had Shieldred into turn 5 Lively Dirge to put the Greasefang and the Sky Sovereign, remove the Omnath, and just kind of the power of this Greasefang deck being on the play is very strong against a kind of like the king of mid-range that Niftalite is.
But now Charles will be on the play here does kind of change the tempo quite a bit, because being ahead of the turn does mean you get the mana rock down. You can jam it really early. You basically at 4 mana compared to Rune's, Rune 3 mana on Rune's turn 3, which could be a big difference.
I mean, if the Nivtalite deck has another Caryatid opener, it's going to be very difficult for Rune to kind of resolve anything that they want to kind of combo with from the Greasefang side. But Charles's list does have a bunch of options that they can bring in for Greasefang specifically. We did see Lightning Helix in the deck in that game. That is something that immediately kills Greasefang with only 3 toughness. Very similarly, you could wind up having things like Deafening Clarion, which is a 3 damage board wipe. More importantly, with Deafening Clarion, your Omnath can also gain lifelink, so you can clear the board of a Greasefang and then swing in for 4 lifelink to really put yourself kind of out of reach. And then there are also a couple of other things that we might wind up seeing, just like Elder Gargaroth from the Niftalite list. Just having a big, dumb 6/6 that can not only attack and block very freely with Vigilance, but then also have the ability to draw cards or gain life for Charles will just be a big thing that Rune's deck will have to Bitter Triumph to get rid of, because I don't think there's any actual other removal spells that Rune would have that get rid of it.
Yeah, so let's see how game number 3 goes for Charles. As Charles is unfortunately did not have all the answers.
Which is like a really weird thing to say from the Niftalite deck, because the Niftalite deck is literally just a deck full of answers, but Niftalite is kind of like Jund with a emergency button. You can cast Bring to Light and basically find the card that you need as long as it's 5 mana or less, because that's what your converge value can cap out at. But sometimes you just draw the wrong part of your deck. You got that mid-range syndrome, And unfortunately, that was just what happened with Charles that game. You didn't have an Omnath or something in hand that was going to be able to gain extra life, and Rune just had the actual combo that they need from their deck.
Yeah, so Rune is going down to 6. Sounds like they only had a 1-lander, so you have no choice but to bend that. Well, Charles looks like he has I think Fable the Mirror Breaker, another Sacred Foundry start. I think it's just 3 games in a row where Charles starts out with Sacred Foundry into Another, probably Cornucopia again.
Cornucopia would be pretty solid. One thing we haven't seen from this Niv the Light list so far is Up the Beanstalk, which another thing that haunts four-color modern player opponent streams. So unfortunately, Charles not going to have that one. But you know, we still have Fable, we have Cornucopia, we have a bunch of plays that Charles can kind of slam down here and be pretty solid. But we did see in Rune's hand is a Parhelion and a way to discard it. So this could potentially be untapped Greasefang this turn too.
Charles actually was to play, I don't know which land it was, but something, but decides to play the Fatal Passage on turn number 3. So I don't know exactly what the signaling, I forgot, is Fatal Passage is supposed to be 4.
It's if it's 4 or it's your 4th land or higher, it'll enter the battlefield untapped. But unfortunately, this one for Charles should be entering tapped.
Yeah, it should be actually tapped, but otherwise we might have to go out there and try to correct this.
Well, Charles also has the triple sleeve deck, so he needs all the time, both hands to shuffle it. So unfortunately,
Oh no! So can we head out there real quick? Yeah. Make sure you get the game stays fine. Oh. So everyone actually turns out everyone around Charles pointing out you can't actually do that. So Charles' misplay here can be very crucial on this game.
especially with that tainted indulgence in the hand.
Oh no! I forgot what that card was. That had the angels.
Yeah, the Parhelion just
Parhelion.
being discarded. So this is
this potentially is a turn 3 Greasefang here. Oh, actually not.
Rune doesn't have it. Oh, Charles kind of getting a little lucky on that one.
But
there.
Charles still pretty bad for Charles because now Charles is basically instead of being a turn ahead is now just only a turn, being 2 turns ahead, now only 1 turn ahead.
So see if Charles still opts for that Cornucopia or if there's something in Omnath in hand that winds up getting cast here. Either one of those would be a pretty solid play. Cornucopia leaves 2 mana available, so that represents a Lightning Helix on a Greasefang, and ooh.
But looks like these is gonna come out for Rune here. This card, every time I see it, just keeps on getting the value.
I'm more impressed with the fact that this Unmoored Ego is usually a one-of main deck card, and Charles has had it every game.
Well, Thoughtseize comes out from Rune here, going down to 18. Well, I get the first game Bring Delight into Ordinary Eagle, so...
All right, that's true. Okay, yeah. You do have the tutor in your deck
Ooh,
there
that's
to
an
do it.
Ashiok in the hand of Charles here. So it looks like Ashiok Cornucopia pushed in Fable. So you take the Ashiok here, but at least Push can still deal with the Greasefang once it's resolved.
I mean, if you go exactly Fable the Mirror Breaker, make the Goblin Shaman token, and then you have a treasure from that at any point in time, that Fable pushes is basically destroy target Greasefang or Shieldred from Charles's deck.
Looks like a Stubby D also in the hand of Rune here. So if Charles taps out, it might be a little bit concerning. Charles is a really tough decision to make here on what to play on turn number 5.
Charles does have an extra land in hand, so Rune doesn't need to kind of do anything cute to try to tap him out of anything with that Stubborn Denial, because Stubborn Denial is just Force Spike right now. There's no 4 or greater power creature on the battlefield, so Rune's not going to be wanting to use that one because it's not a hard counter spell. And now Charles basically has the decision of, do I shock in so I can play Fable the Mirror Breaker with Stubborn Denial in hand? Charles doesn't know about the Stubborn Denial, we do. But we'll have to see if Charles decides to kind of make that heads-up play again of, does Rune just have all this counter magic?
Charles. Really tough to be, so he's gonna play the tap and then go. Heads-up play coming out. Now, Rune gets to consider here. Gonna bend the land, draw it. So, Charles actually not gonna be blown out.
Now, there's no real pressure on Charles to slam down this Fable immediately. If Rune is playing the reactive game, that means that there's no Greasefangs in hand, there's no Shieldred on the battlefield, so Charles's life total isn't under pressure, and playing against these 4 or 5 color piles, you know that they have the inevitability.
Yeah, so Rune's just a little shocking pass go here. Charles is gonna have to think a little bit more now what to do, more so gonna play the Fable out. Trigger from the Cornucopia, go up to 21.
Yeah, Shock Pass in Charles's head could represent 3 steps ahead, but we know in Rune's hand that there's Stubborn Denial and Takanuma that can be channeled to try to find a Greasefang.
Actually, so it looks like we can see the Takanuma be channeled here, most likely. Can't be countered.
Nope, that's just an ability. And it looks like it's just miss, 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 just all lands. Little unfortunate.
Well, at least it clears the top deck.
It does.
Worst case scenario, you're not gonna have any dead draws at least potentially.
So Rune with Faithful Mending, really digging for Greasefang here. There's been that Parhelion in Rune's graveyard since turn 2, and just hasn't found the thing to reanimate it with quite yet. No Lively Dirges, no Greasefangs, not even a Shielder to really put anything on the board right now and kind of prevent Charles from wanting to play this Fable the Mirror Breaker as a filter effect for his hand.
So 2 more lands will be in the graveyard for Rune here. Looks like it's just bricking quite hard, but does have a Stubby D in the hand still. And maybe the same for sure. I'm not sure what the other blue card is.
Is that double Stubborn Denial?
So it's actually double Stubby D here.
So 2 Stubborn Denials, and there's the Faithful Mending in the graveyard. So Rune can just opt to flashback Faithful Mending instead next at the end of Charles's turn. But now there's the treasure token. The Fatal Push was actually discarded to the Fable the Mirror Breaker's second chapter to wind up drawing an extra card on Charles's draw step. Or, sorry, the end of Charles's draw step before the main phase began. So we'll see. Oh, a shock coming in from Charles. So a lot of mana here. This looks like Omnath. Now it looks like Niv Mizzet.
I think this is Niv Mizzet, I'm pretty sure. But Charles does have the 2 mana to actually pay for both WDs.
Well, Stubborn Denial can actually only hit spells. It's non-creature spells. So casting Niv Mizzet here instead of casting Bring to Light is key. But this is Niv Mizzet Supreme. So this is actually very difficult for Rune to kill because I believe Rune only has Bitter Triumph in their deck to remove things, and Niv Mizzet has right there Hexproof from Monocolor. So that's going to be basically unkillable, and then each instant or sorcery in Charles's graveyard that is exactly 2 colors will have Jumpstart, which means next turn, this turn, Charles with that treasure token can Unmoored Ego one more time.
Well, that's the real question is, will Charles see that line potentially? But it looks like he doesn't. Playing on more kind of magic. Oh, Thoughtseize comes out from Rune.
Oh, I didn't even realize that they passed the turn there.
Down to 14. Oh, Binding in. I forgot the other one.
Vanishing Verse. That is not a way to answer Greasefang, but it is a way to answer Shieldred because that exiles a monocolored permanent. And that's actually also a way to exile the Parhelion when it becomes a creature. Or even just when it's reanimated. It doesn't have to be a creature.
Oh, there's the Greasefang coming out from Rune.
But there's a heads-up Leyline binding right there, too.
There's a Leyline binding out.
And I believe with Greasefang still on the stack, Charles can just pay for Stubborn Denial.
Yeah. But I'm not too sure, actually, because Greasefang has to be resolved for Leyline binding to actually stick.
That's true. So then this Stubborn Denial is just going to be a hard counter spell.
Yeah, which is actually rough, but Charles just has to play it anyway.
Are you responding to this, or is this good?
No.
Both players working out
Yeah, resolve.
results.
I will attempt to comment.
Priority passes, Leyline Binding comes out, and there it is, the hard counter Stubborn Denial.
So this is interesting now for Rune because Rune is in a situation where only 9 damage is coming through because Niv will chump one of these 4/4 angels. It is a 5/5. So that is just going to block one of the angels. So 9 damage will come across here. So Charles will wind up falling down to 15. And then Charles can potentially just... Oh, sorry. There was also 1 life gained from the Leyline binding from the Astral Cornucopia. But now Charles can just untap. And if he has another way to deal with Greasefang, you could wind up just having kill the Greasefang, jumpstart Unmoored Ego, get rid of all the Greasefangs. But Charles does only have 1 card left in hand, so you have to discard that card in order to jumpstart a spell.
Now, Charles looking at the graveyard, trying to pick what to play, but I think we just play the push here with the treasure.
Well, you can't. Well, that's the graveyard, and Niv Mizzet Supreme specifically states that you have to have a card that's exactly 2 colors to jumpstart. So the options right now are basically you can jumpstart the Vanishing Verse, you can jumpstart the Unmoored Ego, or you could jumpstart.
You can't jumpstart.
That should not be able to be jumpstart.
You should not jumpstart. One sec. Let me head out again to double check with the players.
No. Hold on. That's still. It's still on the stack. Yes.
We should be good with future calls. We got a judge at the table. So.
Yeah, we should be good actually now since we officially have the judge at the table now. So the judges are watching over the match now, correcting the decision on the spot already. So now Charles in the rough position here. Think at least if the judge didn't do it, we would have done it. At least.
So what Charles is deciding now is, do I want to jumpstart something like this Unmoored Ego, or do I want to wait and then jumpstart the Vanishing Verse to get rid of the Parhelion? Because I believe Vanishing Verse is an instant. So
Yeah, let's take a look at Vanishing Verse here. So it is a 1 black, 1 red. Sorry, not red. 1 black, 1 white, exile target monocolor permanent. So yeah, you just have to wait for the Vanishing Verse to come out.
yeah, and now we're debating if do we attack with the Niv Mizzet? Because if you attack with the Niv Mizzet, you're at least eating 4 damage because Rune is probably going to wind up crewing with the Greasefang. If you're able to get the Parhelion back in the graveyard, which we know they can because there's a Faithful Mending down there. And it looks like, nope, just Charles is saying, I'm going to attack, create a treasure token here, get my mana online, and this Niv Mizzet Supreme doesn't have to do blocking duty if there's only ever going to be 4 damage coming through. So this puts basically a 2-turn clock on Rune, putting Rune all the way down to 7. And now buying Yorion and casting Yorion is an option.
You need also a Cornucopia trigger off this as well, I'm pretty sure. So we're gonna gain 2, go up to 18. So Yorion being now, it does change quite a bit in this matchup.
This will also untap Niv Mizzet as a blocker, so this is going to be really key. And now the Fable the Mirror Breaker gets a second Goblin Shaman token, and then we can wind up drawing and discarding more cards. But the one thing that this does is that it does not allow us to leave up Vanishing Verse from the jumpstart. So this means that Rune still has the ability to remove something and discard here. But that is not able to be, that's not able to be Bitter Triumph, yeah.
So how to take has to take the Yorion here. It's gonna start Faithful Mending. Go up to 9.
So at this point here, this is going to be an attack for... Charles will block 1 angel. This will be an attack for 15 still, because the 2 angels and the Parhelion will get through. So Charles will go down to 3, and that leaves 3 blockers on Rune's side for the current 3 creatures.
I'm gonna take the Sky Charm instead. So
this is a pretty heads-up play, because colorless cards are not monocolored.
yeah,
I didn't even see the Sky Sovereign in the graveyard.
Sky Charm just got discarded right now from Faithful Mending.
Okay.
This is pretty good. It's a pretty good play from Rune here, because now the Niv Mizzet Supreme is going to get pinged down by the Sky Sovereign. Wow. So on the stack, we're going to.
Okay, so yeah, we did have the ability to get the Vanishing Verse back because the Cornucopia in play up there, which I missed when I was originally evaluating the situation. So we gain 2 life, and then we wind up taking the damage from the Sky Sovereign, but killing the Angel off.
Wow, so Charles is now in a rough position here with a trigger, second Fable trigger here.
Oh, that's a good card in Charles's hand, just doesn't even want to draw discard with the Fable the Mirror Breaker. This could be another Niv. This could be an Omnath. This could be a Bring to Light. Rune is tapped out right now, so this could be a huge play here.
Rune goes down to 5. Make 2 more treasures. We're gonna tap 3, 4, 5 mana. I think it's Bring to Light.
Should be. Oh, no, there's just Niv. Niv Mizzet Reborn.
Niv Mizzet Reborn comes out.
So Niv Mizzet Reborn is going to let Charles look at the top 10 cards of their library and then going to be able to choose up to one of each guild color. So 1 of each color pairing. So, you could have Orzhov, Dimir, Golgari, Rakdos, etc., which will give Charles a lot of different cards that you could potentially cast. But did Charles just whiff?
I think Charles is whiffed on all 10.
That was, look at 10, take none of them. That's huge.
Wow, so Rune actually is gonna escape They're just gonna only get away with this one for now. So we're gonna have 5 mana come out for Sky Sovereign hard cast. We're gonna ping down one of the Goblin Shamans.
So
We're
yeah,
gonna go combat, get the pen.
the Parhelion comes
Parhelion.
back. This will get 2 angels, so that's attacking in. Charles can eat the Parhelion because Niv Mizzet is a 6/6, but that'll just put it back in the graveyard. So most likely you're going to be eating an angel. You're going to be taking 8 damage altogether. Sorry, you're going to be taking 9 damage altogether, which will put you down to 10. And then more importantly, Rune can crew Sky Sovereign to block Niv Mizzet.
Yes. So actually, so they're already swinging. We're gonna block one of the angels, and we're gonna go down to 10 for Charles. But this Sky Scarvin is looking pretty scary on the board. See, considering he just pinged down the Niv Mizzet.
Well, yeah, if Charles doesn't attack with Niv Mizzet, although it can only take 3 damage now because it's actually in play already, so you can ping down the Fable of the Reflection of Kiki Jiki or the Goblin Shaman token. Can't actually kill Niv Mizzet, but can make it awkward for Niv Mizzet to block in combat against one of those Angel tokens. But if Charles attacks here, the Angel will crew Sky Sovereign will block Niv Mizzet, and then Niv Mizzet will die, and then Charles will be left with just 2 blockers that can't deal with Angels.
So we're gonna swing trigger here from the Goblin Shaman. Gonna get at the treasure. So look like 3, 4, 5, 6, 9 mana potentially for Charles. But the mana doesn't really mean much if you're just gonna swing out anyway.
Oh, this is interesting. This is just a chump block coming out from Rune, so not removing the Niv Mizzet. And now going down to 3. Lightning Helix would be a kill. But Charles opting not to cast whatever he has in his hand. The Reflection of Kiki Jiki can copy things, but this Tainted Indulgence means that there's going to be draw 2, and very importantly, look at the cost in the graveyard, because if you can discard that Parhelion, Angels are coming right back.
Only thing though, Reflection of Kiki Jiki can only copy the Goblin Shaman token, so not really gonna do much here, except for maybe just get additional attacker for next turn.
If Charles has a next turn, because right now Charles is just dead on board to this Parhelion coming back.
Before combat, Leyline Binding comes out of Charles!
Is there a counter spell?
2 steps ahead! So Chrono Copy on the game 1, go up to 11.
But you're taking 15,
Don't
Charles!
take 15 though! Look at Parhelion comes out back from the grave. Go to combat, swing, trigger, get 2 angels. And that's his game! Esper
it.
Greasefang takes in game number 3 versus Niv Delight.
Whew.
Wow!
That was a grindy game. That was a little bit unfortunate for Charles's side because having that Niv Mizzet Reborn whiff on all 10 cards basically meant that Charles had like lights out. You had a 6/6 at that point, and that was basically it. Sure, it was the biggest thing on the battlefield, but that the Sky Sovereign was there. You can't really keep it on defense to block because you're just going to lose so much tempo. That was super solid stuff from both players, and Rune's deck, after the first game where it just didn't want to cooperate and didn't have Greasefangs, and you got Unmoored Ego off of a Bring to Light, game number 3 there, it was kind of just a very, very good like demonstration of why some people choose Esper over Abzan Greasefang.
Yeah, also like Charles had amazing top decks, but also two of the most unfortunate like digs. Like in both, I think he did like what he did before the Niv Mizzet Reborn. He also did the villains, also bricked.
Yeah, there were a bunch of different kind of like with the Fable of the Mirror Breaker. The first time he used it, he discarded the Fatal Push, and then had like Cornucopia in hand to kind of jumpstart with the Niv Mizzet Supreme. And then there was the little bit of unfortunate turn of you drew the Niv Mizzet, you didn't discard with the Fable, so you missed on those extra draws, and then you look at the top 10 and it's just nada.
Yeah, I think hitting nothing from the Niv Mizzet Reborn is, I think, insane, especially in this Niv to Light deck.
So that's kind of the issue with the Niv to Light decks a little more recently. So we did see Sunfall, Deadly Cover Up, Leyline Binding, Fable of the Mirror Breaker. We know Up the Beanstalk is in the deck. Then there's Sylvan Caryatid and Astral Cornucopia. If you wind up bringing in cards like Pick Your Poison from the sideboard, we're already at 8 cards that you can't hit with Niv Mizzet. There's Omnath, which is 4 colors. So then we know there's 3 copies of a 9th card in the deck that you can't actually hit with Niv Mizzet Reborn. So that's why we wind up seeing these decks playing things like Lila, so that you can wind up having another dual color kind of payoff to get. Some of the decks run Tulsimir, Friend of Wolves. So you have another dual color card, payoff card you can get. But you're putting in all these Bring to Light targets, and it's making your Nivs weaker, which is why we see them cutting down to like 2 Reborns and 1 Supreme in the list overall. Because sometimes you just whiff, even if you have an 80 card deck.
Yeah, I mean, it's so hard because like both games, it could have just really gone either way. It had to be on Android seat the entire time. It was so man.
And we did wind up seeing Rune's sideboard plan kind of
Yes.
coming to fruition, putting in some extra counter spells. We saw the 3 steps ahead. We saw the stubborn denials, just a bunch of different things. But that was also the last match in the round, so we're actually going to be moving on in just a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I really want to see that. It's so absurd that it didn't hit at all. But you know what does hit? Friday's Pokemon tournaments. Cardart hosts a standard format Pokemon tournament every Friday night at 6:30 p.m. Pacific time. Entry is just $7. Win $3 store credit for being win $3 store credit for being awarded for a round win. Win 4 best of 1 rounds timed at 30 minutes each. Shoot for the 4-0 and receive 3 additional booster packs. And for additional play for a pack when available at the store, you can catch them all. But also too, make sure that Cardart's Pokemon like locals are absolutely insane.
Oh yeah,
We have like a couple regional championships.
Yeah.
I think we do have the world champion here.
Mhm.
So a lot of high quality games do come down on Fridays.
Yeah, definitely. Big Pokemon store, big Magic store, big a lot of different things.
So we're gonna take a small little break here as the round number 3 is just starting, but we need some time to set everything up. So we'll see you guys soon.